This is Trendy Storm and you are watching second part of What If Naruto Was Executed. If you enjoy this video, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
Jiraiya couldn't grasp it. He honestly didn't. For the past 3 weeks, the Toad Sannin had been searching for Naruto's whereabouts. Looking under every rock, tree, and cave, the brat could be hiding his whatever body he had. His spy network was unable to discover anything about Naruto or locate him. None of the brat's old friends or allies had seen Naruto. As far as anyone knew, the Gaki had long died, and his body had turned to ash in the wind. In all of the elemental countries, there was no sign, mark, or form of Uzumaki Naruto. So, where the hell was Naruto? Are you certain about Jiraiya-sama? I seriously doubt Naruto is still alive. I witnessed the moment he died while my Sharingan was activated, Jiraiya frowned as Kakashi remarked. I'm confident, Kakashi. I just wish I knew where the Gaki was so we could stop this before it got any worse, Jiraiya remarked as Kakashi relaxedly read his book. We haven't checked Uzu, Kakashi offered, Jiraiya stiffening at the mention of the Uzumaki clan residence. We can't go there, Jiraiya said as they walked through the town. Why not? Kakashi inquired, his face tinged with curiosity. Because the area is surrounded by powerful seals. I should be aware. I was the one who assisted in getting them there. They are unbreakable, Jiraiya replied because the Sandaime had tasked him with sealing off the entire island so no one could learn the truth about Uzu falling to their enemies. Why would you do that? Kakashi asked, looking at Jiraiya. Because some things are better left sealed away, Jiraiya replied, his tone telling the man beside him to drop it. More would have been said if they hadn't been suddenly surrounded by missing nin and rogue samurai with drawn weapons. Frowning, Jiraiya realized something was wrong with this scenario because missing nin and rogue samurai had never worked together. Each of them was clearly here with the intent of killing the two Konoha nin and making their deaths as painful as possible. I don't suppose you'd give us the reason for this sudden hostility toward us? Kakashi asked, looking around at their adversaries. As if we'd give Konoha scum like yourselves a reason, one missing nin from Iwa remarked, his gaze fixed on Kakashi. Oh, please. Please do not be afraid to tell us. We know you were hired by someone. Whoever it was had to have a lot of money to pay you for his or her time killing the two of us. But did they pay you enough to request your silence? Questioned Jiraiya as many of the enemies around them tensed. We don't question why the client wants you dead. We only know that someone hired us to murder the two of you with his sword drawn, a missing nin from Kiri replied. The issue is that there are so many of you and only 2 of us. How will you get paid if only a few of you are eligible for the bounty? Asked Jiraiya, hoping to turn the small army here against each other. Our client is far ahead of you in this regard. We all get paid whether or not we get the killing strike on you, a rogue samurai remarked. How thoughtful of him. And what is the cost of our heads? Jiraiya inquired, slightly perplexed. 900 pounds in solid gold per person. While Jiraiya and Kakashi paled, Kumo replied with a missing nin. 900 pounds in solid gold? Per person? That's a total of 1,800 pounds. That money-hungry individual, if Nin Kakuzu heard that and was still alive, he would have a heart attack with all 5 of his hearts at once. Tsunade would kill me and rip my nuts off if she could get more out of the deal. Thought Jiraiya, as such a bounty was not only impossible to resist, but also practically unbeatable in terms of matching the payment on his end if he wanted to bribe this group to look the other way. How could someone afford that? Kakashi wondered, knowing that such a bounty would have every mercenary in the world vying for their hides. Even their fellow Konoha shinobi might be tempted by the bounty. We have no idea and don't care. All I know is that we are being compensated handsomely for our efforts to kill you too, remarked one of the group's thug-like bandits. Your client will be disappointed if none of us return with our heads in hand, Jiraiya said as he and Kakashi prepared to fight. Maybe. But only if you succeed. You may be a Sannin, but even you cannot take on all of us, remarked a samurai as Jiraiya looked around and noticed some of the faces in the bingo book that he recognized as rogue Junin from their respective villages. Maybe. Perhaps not. Come on in and we'll figure it out together, Jiraiya remarked as he and Kakashi faced off against each other. They were in for a fight of epic proportions. Rice Country unknown location. I see you're looking for someone like yourself, Toby observed as he gazed at the hooded figure smirking in the shadows in the laboratory where they were both working. Overall, I am an enemy of Konoha and a former servant of the Snake Sannin. Not to mention another of its members' former spy. You don't care about Sasori or anyone else in the Akatsuki. As I recall, your organization took in Orochimaru-sama and previously targeted him for abandoning it. Given the course of events since then, I'll take your words as a compliment, replied to the robed figure while working on something with his back to Toby. Orochimaru became greedy. He was warned to leave Itachi alone, but he was caught and punished for his actions. Kabuto, as you are well aware, Toby remarked, while Kabuto simply nodded in agreement. That's exactly what he did. And I've learned a lot since then from my former master's error. I also discovered that you wouldn't be here unless you needed something from me, Toby nodded as Kabuto commented. I require your assistance in infiltrating Uzu. I need you to learn the secrets that are hidden there, as well as the rumors that Uzumaki Naruto is still alive, Toby responded, with Kabuto pausing his work and turning to face the masked man with a frown on his face. Naruto Uzumaki? Years ago, the boy was murdered. The entire Konoha village witnessed it. Outside of myself, my master's spies witnessed the event as well, but we knew it was him without a doubt. He was set on fire so that there would be no trace of him to be buried, Toby shakes his head as Kabuto remarks. I've been getting my own reports. Uzumaki Naruto isn't quite as dead as we thought. I believe he would seek refuge in Uzu. After all, he is descended from his mother's family, Toby remarked, with Kabuto looking interested. I had assumed Uzu had been imprisoned. Orochimaru-sama had wanted to go there for years to study the hidden knowledge, but Jiraiya's Fuinjutsu abilities made such a dream impossible, Toby nodded as Kabuto remarked. Jiraiya's Fuinjutsu skills are impressive, but compared to the Uzumaki clan, they are beginner-level seals barely worthy of being used for storage scrolls, Toby remarked as Kabuto looked like his birthday had arrived early. What happened to the seals? Are you certain of this? Toby knew they were down, and Kabuto couldn't be sure unless he asked him to go in his place. True enough. There is some sort of activity going on. Despite what the island appears to be, I can sense it. I'm not sure how it's possible, but there's an illusion over Uzu that not even my Sharingan can break, Toby replied, knowing that such a thing would pique Kabuto's interest. Is there a genjutsu that is immune to the Sharingan's negative effects? Very intriguing, indeed, Kabuto remarked as he pondered this news, because the Sharingan was said to be immune to genjutsu. Regardless, I need you to accompany me there. Find out if Uzumaki Naruto is still alive, and if he is, how powerful the brat has become, Toby was told to leave via Kamui. Oh, I will, but you should know better than to offer something to a snake like me and simply obey without wanting to study something like this for yourself. After all, I might need what Uzu has against you one day, thought Kabuto, who was already planning to take his time with Uzu and learn many of the Uzumaki clan's lost secrets. Days later at Konoha Hospital. Tsunade couldn't believe his eyes. She couldn't believe her eyes. Jiraiya and Hitaki Kakashi, her former teammates, were being treated in this hospital for injuries sustained while fighting off a small army of missing nin, samurai, bandits, and just about anyone else looking to collect the bounty on them. Tsunade herself was tempted when Jiraiya informed her of the price on his head, and Kakashi's head when asked about it. The anonymous client had apparently promised everyone that large sum of gold if they were part of the group responsible for killing the 2 Konoha nin, regardless of who killed them. No one would backstab each other for a bigger cut, and Jiraiya couldn't match or beat the price to make them walk away. The 2 Konoha nin barely made it through the all-out battle. During the fight, Kakashi had to use his Sharingan, and Jiraiya had to summon the toads. A few of the missing nin fighting them had their own summoning animals and fought off the toads before Jiraiya had to resort to fighting in Sage mode. Of course, the fact that Ma and Pa were still angry with the Sannin didn't help, as it was clear that he was already on thin ice with them. In the end, the majority of the enemy army of mercenaries either surrendered or retreated for another day to attack them. Those who had retreated returned to the attack a few days later, relentlessly pursuing the 2 Konoha nin despite their injuries. Only when they got close to Konoha did the attackers back off and make their own tactical retreat for the time being. "So we can assume Naruto put the bounty on you and Kakashi," Tsunade said, while Jiraiya nodded, deadly serious for once despite the fact that she was looking over him instead of male nurses. "Tsunade, it has to be him. Who else would place such a ridiculously high bounty on us? He basically declared open season on anyone who wanted a piece of me and Kakashi. Only Naruto would go so far as to eliminate the risk of backstabbing from these guys, our price match to get rid of them," Jiraiya replied, wincing at the sensation of his body aching from a particularly nasty sword slash performed by a missing nin from Kiri. "And no one is mentioning his location? I'd think someone would be able to tell me who hired so many people." Jiraiya shook his head as he questioned Tsunade. "Tsunade, believe me, I was looking for Naruto. Everywhere and at any time. My spies in every country are looking for him, and no one has seen anyone who even remotely resembles his body," Jiraiya responded with a sigh. "That brat has always been a source of contention. Now he's making matters worse by keeping you in Konoha, which prevents your spy network from reporting back to you. You are an extremely high target with such a large bounty. Not only that, but Kakashi is trapped in Konoha as well, and his tracking ability, as well as his Sharingan, are unable to leave." Tsunade observed that knowing this put them at a significant disadvantage. "I assume the old Konoha rookies are now asking questions? What about their senseis?" Tsunade grimaced as he asked Jiraiya. "Yes. Ino's gossip network appears to be on par with your spy network any day of the week. I was able to persuade them not to question me or the Hokage about this until we had more information. But Shikamaru has already drawn the conclusion that Naruto has returned to the land of the living," Tsunade replied, with Jiraiya sighing because he knew Inara's mind would do such a thing. "If Shikamaru knows, then everyone in Konoha knows Naruto has returned and is plotting to destroy us. The only remaining question is, how will he do it?" Tsunade frowned as Jiraiya inquired. "I honestly have no idea. Whatever the brat is up to, it can't be good," Tsunade remarked, sensing that seeing her former teammate in this state was just the beginning of things to come. At the time of Uzumaki Shrine, Uzumaki Mito was dressed as a ninja. She was with a group of Uzumaki clan members. They were all wearing Anbu masks, just like her. Their master instructed Mito not to engage any Konoha shinobi she came across unless absolutely necessary. He wasn't ready to face Mito's granddaughter just yet. Naruto, or Sauron as he acted at times, was aware of Tsunade's bad temper and would leave Konoha to track him down. It didn't bother Naruto because he could fight Tsunade, but he felt the best time to crush the woman was when he was at full strength and she was in Konoha to drive the humiliation home before delivering the final blow. Even so, Mito was hesitant to comply. She had the option of disobeying. Mito, like the rest of her family, had free will. But Naruto had been correct on numerous occasions since their return to the land of the living. Specifically, about Konoha and how the village had prospered, if not betrayed, the Uzumaki clan at a time when the clan needed them the most. The village even went so far as to erase the Uzumaki clan's role in helping Hashirama build Konoha from their history books. The fact that the Uzumaki shrine was in such disrepair was further evidence. It was as if Kami had taken a blunt object to it in just a few decades. Mito knew Kushina would never have allowed the shrine to deteriorate like this while she was alive, so it had to have started either before or after the woman's death, with no one coming here to maintain it. Take your masks. But be cautious. The power within the shrine may have deteriorated, but it has not. Remember, we respect this location and what it contains. Mito nodded, commanding the Uzu Nin around her. I can't believe this place has crumbled after all these years. Why didn't Konoha make sure this place was well kept? Uzu Nin, who had long spiky red hair, inquired. They abandoned us for the same reason they made Naruto suffer. Because they could and didn't care who suffered as a result. As long as they were able to get away with it, Mito responded in a semi-cold tone. What should we do now that we have the masks? Leaving this place in its current state appears to be an insult to our clan even more than Konoha's actions, another Uzu Nin remarked beside Mito. Simple. We sent Konoha a message. They believe the Uzumaki clan has perished. Naruto is the same way. Only the higher-ups in the village are aware of the truth, which they are no doubt keeping hidden to prevent panic from spreading. We'll make them understand what fear truly means once we have what we need from here. We're going to show them why our clan is so feared. We'll remind them of the consequences of betraying the Uzumaki clan. Mito replied as they set out to do what needed to be done. Konoha elsewhere. A group of ninja from the village gathered at one of Konoha's many training grounds, and none of them seemed happy. 6 of them had been in the same class, 3 had graduated a year before the 6, and with them were the very senseis who had helped train them, with the exception of 2 because Kakashi was in the hospital. And Sarutobi Asuma was killed by the Akatsuki's zombie brothers before they were eliminated by former Genin Team 10. Why are we delaying? Kakashi has been admitted to the hospital. He's not going to appear, Shikamaru sighed as Kiba commented. Troublesome. Because he isn't the one we're looking for, Kiba. We're looking forward to seeing these two, Shikamaru replied, pointing to Anko and Iruka, who were walking over to their group with grim expressions on their faces. That is correct. Naruto Uzumaki is still alive. Shino knew this was the reason they were all gathered. So it appears. What puzzles me is where the bastard has been hiding since his death, Kurenai remarked, having tolerated Naruto from the beginning for Hinata's sake, and seeing the girl come out of her shy shell when around him. Kurenai, on the other hand, saw the simple crush blossom into something more. When compared to Sakura, Ino, and even Tenten on Guy's team, the Genjutsu mistress had always seen potential in Hinata. Hinata had come a long way since joining Kurenai's team, and the woman wanted everyone to see it. She wanted to brag about turning the shy kitten into a fierce lioness. To prove to everyone that Hinata was not a lost cause and that she, like Tsunade, Anko, or even herself, had the potential to be great. But then Uzumaki Naruto appeared and ruined everything. Her student's crush grew beyond wishful thinking. It became more powerful. Even when the brat was away with Jiraiya for 3 years. Kurenai hoped Jiraiya would turn Naruto into a perverted fiend like the Sannin so Hinata would avoid the blonde Uzumaki. Hinata, on the other hand, did the opposite, and the two genin had a secret romantic relationship right under everyone's nose. That includes hers. It was an insult to her Junin rank. To make matters worse, Hinata became pregnant with Naruto's child. A kunoichi with the skill and potential to surpass Tsunade was knocked up by the village's most despised bastard child. It felt like something out of a horror film. At least, that's what Kurenai thought. Hinata had just cut short her ninja career to be with the wife of the Kyuubi Jinchuriki in some strange fairy tale story about the two of them living happily ever after, with the girl becoming his loving housewife. She wasn't on Kurenai's watch. Kurenai had attempted to destroy the relationship even before the pregnancy and the revelation of their hidden marriage. Attempting to convince Hinata's mind and heart that being with Naruto was a mistake. That she should divorce the brat and place the child for adoption while concealing the location of the item from Naruto. Kurenai knew that if Hinata did place the child for adoption, the powers that be in the village would ensure that neither parent saw the child again, and that was fine with her. Hinata was too young to be a mother, and Naruto was unworthy of having a child simply because Hinata was the mother. But Hinata refused to give up. Kurenai even attempted to deceive the girl by claiming she successfully seduced Naruto one night while Hinata was away on a mission. It didn't work again because Naruto had told Hinata about Kurenai's actions and how she had failed to get into his pants. He also told his wife how he threw the ruby-eyed woman out of his house and threatened her with bodily harm if she did it again. Hinata's shocking revelation of knowing the woman's dirty trick slapped Kurenai in the face, exacerbating their already strained relationship. Kurenai had once again blamed Naruto for everything. When it was time for him to die, she shed no tears of sorrow for Hinata's loss of the man she loved and becoming a widow. When the fire broke out, Kurenai smirked cruelly and wanted to go to the nearest bar to celebrate the brat's demise. And she would have. If Naruto's last words of returning one day and him laughing while on fire hadn't soured her mood. I can only speculate on what the Baka has been up to all this time. How did he even make it? For Kami's sake, he was set on fire, while trying to figure things out, Ino remarked. Regardless, we must put an end to him in some way. He is a danger to Konoha and must be apprehended immediately, Neji stated coldly while wishing he could kill the blonde himself with his gentle fist. But we'll need a location, right? So, where does a guy like Naruto go to hide for a couple of years without anyone noticing? I mean, he's famous in so many countries that you'd think one of the places he visited would make a fuss. So why haven't they done so? Questioned Choji as he ate some chips. That's a good question. Shikamaru, do you have any suggestions? While everyone was staring at Nara, Iruka inquired. Troublesome. Suna is undoubtedly absent. Gaara would have done everything he could to assist Naruto in surviving and attacking us by now. Or we would have found out about it through Jiraiya's spy network. Kiri is not present because they are still healing from the civil war and cannot risk provoking any other shinobi village. Iwa refused to take him. Kumo might, if only to breed the Uzumaki genes out of him to strengthen their forces, but we all know that would be an insult to Hinata, and the two would never go there. Nami is too close to us, and Naruto would never put them in danger just to get to him. Shikamaru pondered the situation in his mind. Wait. Isn't Naruto from the Uzumaki clan? Mom once mentioned that they all lived on the island of Uzu. Why not start there? Kiba was perplexed because his mother had once told him a story about the Uzumaki clan and where they lived before their fall. Kiba, nice try, but Jiraiya-sama sealed off that island years ago by order of the Sandaime Hokage himself. Nobody other than a Fuinjutsu master of Jiraiya's caliber can unlock it, let alone break the Fuinjutsus that surround the island, Iruka remarked casually. But I thought the Uzumaki clan were born to create and break Fuinjutsu. And Naruto would have had plenty of time to break them during his time away from us, right? Shikamaru inquired before the group's more seasoned veterans exchanged glances. Without a doubt. Naruto survives being killed, travels to Uzu, and somehow breaks the Fuinjutsu surrounding it in order to recover. Iruka exclaimed as everyone nodded. Clever. The Baka went to the last place we thought to look or thought was accessible. It makes sense. That is something only Naruto would do, Anko remarked as she moved a hand discreetly to her belly in the nightmare from the night before flashed through her mind. Muyurderer. Anko had to fight the instinctive desire to flinch at the memory of the nightmare, as well as the cold realization that those words were true. We need to report this to the Hokage right away, exclaimed Guy, his usual energetic way of expressing himself making everyone sweat. Except for Lee, who was behaving similarly. Of course, before anyone could do so, a loud explosion was heard not far from their location, prompting them to rush to the sound. When the group arrived at the scene, the older adults stiffened as they realized what had been destroyed, and they paled as they saw the symbol that had been on the building now burning among the wreckage. What is this place? Ino inquired, while Kurenai, Iruka, Anko, and Guy all appeared nervous. The symbol is on fire here. It's the symbol on Junin and Chunin's jackets. It is the Uzumaki clan's symbol, Shikamaru replied as he moved forward, looking at the destroyed building. What? But why would Konoha have that symbol on its ninjas' vests and flak jackets if our enemy is an Uzumaki? Sakura, perplexed, inquired. Because, at one time, Konoha and the Uzumaki clan were allies, dating back to the Shodem Hokage. Senju Hashirama was, in fact, the husband of Uzumaki Mito, who, as you may recall, was Senju Tsunade's grandmother. Iruka replied as he saw the fire in front of him on the Uzumaki clan symbol as a grave warning for the future. Doesn't that make Tsunade-sama an Uzumaki? Tenten inquired, as the older adults nodded. That is correct. Tsunade, on the other hand, has always felt she was a Senju first and an Uzumaki second. During the Second Shinobi War, there was a schism between the Uzumaki clan and Konoha by the time the Sandaime Hokage took office. When Uzu fell, the clan members who survived were scattered to the winds, Kurenai responded, while the rookies and Guy's team nodded. How come the survivors didn't come here to Konoha? Guy frowned as Choji inquired. I suspect it was because they believed we abandoned them when a call for help went out to us when Kumo, Iwa, and Kiri banded together to crush them. They no doubt took our refusal to assist when asked very personally, Guy replied because he remembered how the Sandaime secretly ended their alliance with the Uzumaki clan. And you wonder why Konoha is regarded as scum? Observed an Uzu nin dressed in his Anbu uniform on a tree above them near the Uzumaki shrine. What is an Uzu nin? Are you still here? Shikamaru inquired, frowning. Why are you so surprised? We came here to claim what was rightfully ours in this shrine. You, Konoha nin, did a terrible job of keeping it up over the years. It was an act of mercy on the place to burn it down. That doesn't surprise me. You scumbags have always treated those who were not born in this village with contempt, the Uzu nin remarked, while the Konoha nin in front of him frowned. Naruto was born in this village, Choji countered, while Uzu nin laughed. Yet he was executed anyway, Uzu nin observed. Kiba, is Uzu nin really Naruto? I can't see anything through the Anbu mask. My vision is being obstructed by a seal, while the Inuzuka frowned, Neji whispered. I honestly don't know. No, I don't believe so. The smoke from the burned-down building masks his scent, Kiba returned Neji's whisper. Naruto was indeed born in this village. But you seem to have forgotten that he was an Uzumaki on his mother's side. Kushina was never welcomed as a child here. Not like Mito was when she assisted her husband in establishing the village years ago, just before Madara went insane. Add to that Naruto was the Jinchuriki of Kyuubi, as revealed by the Sandaime Hokage, and thus had the biggest fucking target on his back the size of that eyesore of a monument you have up there, and you have a recipe for disaster. While many people frowned at his words, Uzu-nin responded. Stop talking. Sandaime-sama was killed while defending this village. He was a wonderful man. Tenten objected, and Uzu-nin laughed. Is he a great man? Because Konoha had the Kyuubi, that great man abandoned allies who were my kin during a war. That great man let Orochimaru with the Sannin escape rather than killing him for the horrible experiments performed on people. Sannin murdered men, women, and even children in the name of progressive science, with mutated bodies that rejected the changes made because they were not natural. When he confronted Orochimaru with his Anbu that day, the Sandaime Hokage could have stopped him, but he let him go. And, while it is true that the Sandaime Hokage died defending this village from destruction, he did not do so for selfless reasons. As you have been led to believe, the group of Konoha nin grew angrier with each passing moment of the red-haired Anbu-masked nin running the Sandaime's name through the mud, replied the Uzu nin. Stop talking. You have no knowledge. Sakura exclaimed as the Uzu nin sighed from his sluggish position on the tree. Oh, I don't do that, do I? Well, I suppose you are correct in that regard. I've been dead since before Sandaime ever left office the first time. But, I happen to know the Konoha resident who did. You've all heard of him as Uzumaki Naruto. As he saw the group draw weapons at the mention of the blonde's name, Uzu-nin responded. Do you know where the monster is? Sakura demanded, while the Uzu-nin ignored her for the time being because he was focused on the adults. You didn't think death would prevent an Uzumaki like Naruto from exacting his long-desired vengeance, did you? He still remembers the day you all turned on him. Tortured him to find out where his beloved wife and child were hiding. When you put the blade to his throat, he gave you nothing. How you attempted to break up his marriage by seducing him or having men seduce his wife. That last part is very important to my master. With the four Konoha nin flinching, the Uzu nin replied while his gaze was on Guy, Kurenai, Iruka, and Anko. You claim to have died before the Sandaime Hokage retired. That is, you were resurrected by a forbidden jutsu. The Forbidden Scroll of Seal's version. The one used by Orochimaru against the Sandaime Hokage during the Chunin exams all those years ago. Edo Tensei, Shikamaru deduced with the Uzu nin glancing over at the Nara for a second. All of you Nara clan members are the same. The body is sloth, but the mind is as sharp as lightning. Yes, I was brought back by the Edo Tensei. In a sense, Shikamaru frowned as Uzu nin responded. In a roundabout way? What does he mean by that? Shikamaru wondered as the Uzu nin chuckled at Nara's serious expression. To answer your question about the Edo Tensei, let me simply say that my master has modified it slightly to suit his needs. In fact, one could argue that he perfected the Edo Tensei, the Uzu nin responded, while the group in front of him looked stunned. No way. A jerk like him? That baka couldn't even put his sandals on correctly. Sakura exclaimed, while Uzu nin smiled. Funny, because he seems to remember a time when you couldn't get your head out of the Uchiha's ass when you weren't trying to suck his dick, Uzu nin replied before frowning behind his mask for a second and ignoring Sakura's angry shriek. And drew his sword and stabbed something in the chest behind him. Or rather, someone holding a tanto in both hands, ready to strike the Uzu nin. Kiba exclaimed in surprise, sigh. Before realizing the pale-skinned boy had slipped away from them. Not bad, young man. You came very close. Still, you can't compete with an Uzumaki's sensory prowess. We can easily detect emotions. When Uzu nin saw Sai's shocked expression, he responded. But I don't have any emotions. Danzo-sama. Conditioned. Me, Sai exclaimed, surprised that the Uzumaki had detected him. I know. My master had warned us about it. As a result, we retrained ourselves to use our sensory abilities to find people devoid of emotions. I almost feel sorry for you if you weren't a Konoha shinobi, one of Danzo's root pawns, and an enemy of the Uzumaki clan. There are no emotions. It's like a huge void in a lifeless body. Just emptiness. Of course, what would one expect from your spineless teacher, who is terrified of death and believes emotions make people weak? Uzu Nin replied before pulling out the sword and letting Sai's body fall to the ground. Kiba exclaimed, "Bastard!" as Uzu Nin tilted his head. It's a tragedy to see such a frail and weak spirit with a strong body die in such a way. Still, it was best to end his suffering. Such weak pawns as Danzo has in his possession are only useful as cannon fodder while he flees the approaching darkness and fires of war, Uzu Nin remarked before leaping from his perch in the tree to the ground and ordering everyone into battle positions. Uzu Nin, you're outnumbered. Surrender now and your life will be much easier. Maybe even free you from the Edo Tensei and bring peace to your soul. Iruka spoke while Uzu Nin laughed. Surrender? Let me go? Can you bring my soul peace? You're clueless, aren't you? I am not Uzumaki Naruto's servant. I am not his pawn. I am his descendant. I, like you, have free will. When it comes to surrendering, I'm not a big fan. Especially to a slew of backstabbing jerks like you. And what about bringing my soul peace? There is only one way Konoha can accomplish this, while being surrounded by his adversary, Uzu Nin responded. And how can Konoha do that? Kiba asked, snarling at him. Simple. Konoha and everyone in it are killed. Uzu Nin stated in a cold tone as he made a hand sign and vanished in a crimson flash. Did he simply use Hiraishin no Jutsu? I thought only the Yondaime Hokage could use that move? Kurenai was questioned because she didn't know anyone else who had that move, and it was assumed that the Yondaime was the sole holder of that jutsu. The sudden appearance of a small army of Root Anbu ended any further questions from the group on this subject. Report to the Hokage Tower right away. Every one of you, commanded the Anbu Root Captain, knowing that getting this group to Danzo and telling him what happened here would be best. The sooner you start, the better. Uzu a little later. Kabuto slithered through the forest and trees like a snake, a hungry look in his eyes. He'd heard the rumors, whispers, and stories about this place for years. Even before he became a missing nin, Orochimaru had wanted to come here. The Sandaime, on the other hand, had ordered Jiraiya to seal off the island, which enraged the Snake Sannin to no end. Kabuto, like Orochimaru, hypothesized that knowledge of Fuinjutsu could be used to extend life, if not completely avoid death, with the right seal formula crafted by such skill masters. Such a feat was only possible if Orochimaru had access to the Uzumaki clan's vault. But the Sandaime refused, believing that the Uzumaki clan survivors would return to Uzu one day and that they couldn't risk that happening. Ironic. The very person Konoha doesn't want alive, let alone in possession of Uzu's secrets, is the one who will open it and grant me access. If Orochimaru were still alive, he'd love this, Kabuto thought as he slithering around before entering the village of Uzu. Only to find it abandoned and destroyed. Kabuto frowned as he moved deeper into the village, hiding in the shadows of the buildings around him and searching for his prey. Of course, Kabuto was now curious about Naruto's appearance since his execution. Was the blonde still the same as he remembered her from their last meeting on that bridge all those years ago? How big had the boy grown? Was the Kyuubi still sealed inside his body? So many thoughts and theories racing through his mind. Where have you gone, Naruto-kun? Do you realize I'm here? Perhaps you do and are hiding from me like a scared child? Is that why you're making this place look as if it's never been disturbed? I give you an A for effort, but AF for believing it would last this long, laughed Kabuto as he noticed the strange genjutsu in the village. Kabuto channeled his chakra discreetly through his body until the time was right, at which point he released a chakra pulse to break the genjutsu. The genjutsu, to his surprise, did not break. Or, at the very least, not entirely. Some parts of the buildings had been revealed to show that they weren't as badly damaged as they first appeared, but the illusionary effect remained and wasn't breaking as Kabuto had hoped. Frowning, Orochimaru's former right hand slithered to another location and tried again, this time with more chakra. He was met with only partial success once more. Elsewhere, a large dark entity stirred, wearing black samurai armor, a black samurai helmet with two large horns sticking up on either side, and a black purplish flame for a face. What is his name? Doku was his name. An ancient samurai warrior from long before the days of the Sage of Six Paths. A warrior of incredible power who had been summoned to this world by the dark powers of his new master Sauron. He turned his head in the direction of the chakra pulse, sensing that something was wrong. We have an unexpected and unwelcome guest, Doku said to his army of dark samurai warriors. The intruder is attempting to destroy the island's illusion. If he continues in this manner, he will draw unwanted attention from any nearby strong sensor nin outside of the island, a dark samurai remarked. That is why we are going to put a stop to him. Get out, commanded Doku as he and his dark samurai moved toward Kabuto's direction. Along with Kabuto. Most intriguing. When hit by a strong chakra pulse, you will not break like a genjutsu should. That is, you are more than just a genjutsu practitioner. Is this the reason Toba's Sharingan isn't working? Because you're a combination of something else? Questioned Kabuto as he prepared to send out another strong chakra pulse to not only break part of the genjutsu, but also study what was left. Only to be confronted by the appearance of a large black armored samurai's foot to his face, which sent him crashing through a few nearby trees. Coughing up some blood, Kabuto looked up to see the imposing samurai and others with swords drawn behind him. You came a long way to die, little snake creature, Doku observed as he drew his sword from his waist and saw Kabuto wipe the blood from the side of his mouth. Interesting. A shell for a body, but within it is a spirit that keeps it alive. That is, you are not a fully alive being, Doku remained silent, while Kabuto commented. Kill him, Doku said as his samurai charged forward, swords drawn. Fool. I am no ordinary shinobi, Kabuto smirked before coating his hands in chakra and cutting through the samurai attempting to kill him. I know, Doku replied, because he wanted to assess the snake's speed and skill with his forces before confronting the creature. Do you think you'll tell me where Uzumaki Naruto is? It seems a shame that such a powerful-looking warrior as yourself is trailing a mere hyperactive child. Why serve someone who acts like a fool in front of others when you could serve someone like me? Inquired Kabuto, as the darkness around Doku seemed to grow. Doku just laughed. If only you knew the truth, little snake. If only you knew how wrong you were about him. Concerning Sauron, Doku commented before moving faster than Kabuto expected and being hit by the samurai's shoulder deeper into the forest. Kabuto tried to recover, but Doku's assault was relentless, and his sword had an eerie feel to it. Every cut felt like the sword was severing a sliver of his soul. Doku shrugged off a hit from Kabuto's mystical palm jutsu and backhanded the snake-like man across the face. Sauron? Is that the name Naruto now goes by? Did he change his name to avoid being recognized by everyone who knows him? Thought Kabuto as he felt his body heal itself. I see you have reservations about my master. Look behind you in that case. He's arrived, Doku remarked before sheathing his sword and kneeling. What? What happened to him? I can't find him. Questioned Kabuto while looking around and not seeing anyone. Only for something invisible to make its presence known through a powerful and unexpected weight looming above Kabuto's form. Kabuto, you can't see me because you can't see shadows and darkness. You may have snake eyes, but you are not capable of seeing in the dark, no matter how snake-like you appear, came Soren's voice, while his formless black mass of shadow finally revealed itself to a stunned Kabuto. Naruto-kun, I'm sorry. It's great to see you after all this time. You appear different. Did you change your hairstyle? Questioned Kabuto mockingly before being struck by the shadowy mass with the force of a rampaging Biju Chakra-enhanced rhino. You were saying my old friend? Sauron asked mockingly, as he had been at a loss for what to call himself since returning to his home world. Only recently, with Mito and the rest of his family's assistance, did he come to terms with his identity. Of what he should call himself. In reality, he knew that no matter what form he took, Naruto was still very much alive. Just as much as the Dark Lord Sauron part of him. So he decided to separate the two in some ways while still using both names when appropriate. When he was with those he cared about, his name was Uzumaki Naruto. When he faced his enemies and those he had yet to trust, he was Sauron. And he was currently Sauron in this fight with Kabuto. That hurt Naruto-kun a lot. Both metaphorically and literally. Is this how you treat an old friend after such a long time? Questioned Kabuto before being hit again with greater force by Sauron, severing several trees in the process. Kabuto recovered in a small forest clearing before rapidly generating more chakra around his body like a bubble. He smirked when he saw that it had stopped the shadowy mass and Naruto's progress. Kabuto pushed Naruto back with more chakra, but soon frowned as his opponent pressed forward, making the bubble shrink back. Kabuto found himself attempting to match Naruto in a power struggle, which the Snake Man believed he would win because his reserves were comparable to those of a Sannin, and it was clear Naruto no longer had the Kyuubi's chakra to aid him. Nonetheless, the shadowy mass persisted. Enough! Exclaimed Sauron before hitting Kabuto with more force, breaking the chakra bubble and causing the Snake Man to stumble back. Kabuto decided to take a different approach to putting Naruto down, snarling angrily at the fact that this formless mass could actually match him in terms of power and acting like his superior. Because fire had previously ended the brat, it seemed only natural to do so again, and he launched a massive fire jutsu at the shadowy form in front of him, consuming it in a blaze of glory, similar to how oil caught fire and burned in a blaze of glory. So much for the great Uzumaki Naruto, or Sauron as you call yourself, Kabuto mocked before starting to walk away. Only for him to freeze in horror when he heard laughter. From behind him, there was cold, cruel laughter. Kabuto, you know nothing. Allow me to educate you on the difference in power between us. While the fire unleashed on his form was swallowed by his shadowy mass, Sauron began to take shape. When Kabuto turned around, his eyes widened in horror at the sight of what appeared to be an armored figure covered in, if not filled with, fire. This figure was now approaching him in a slow, almost taunting manner before stopping a few feet away and raising one hand. Kabuto attempted to react, but his movements were too slow and too late as he was lifted off the ground by an invisible force before collapsing. He tried to stand up and fight, but the strength of this invisible power was too much for him, and he was thrown around mercilessly like a rag doll. As he was lifted into the air and forced into a crucified position, he felt the grip on his body almost suffocate him. "What are you?" asked Kabuto, staring at this thing that was holding him like this. "What exactly am I?" "I am the darkness. I'm on fire. Your lord and master is me. I am the elemental country's future ruler of all things. I am Sauron," exclaimed Sauron, letting his power explode to form what was known as the Great Eye throughout Middle-earth, that many had witnessed in the past and brought many to their knees in submission. As the Great Eye in front of him invaded his mind, causing the Snake Man to scream in pain, Kabuto could only whimper in fear. This entity's piercing gaze seemed to consume his entire being. It was too much for him. The image of the eye burned itself into his brain, overriding his mental functions, and it felt like his mind was being raped without mercy of its secrets. And Sauron couldn't care less, no matter how loud the Snake Man screamed. Konoha office Hokages several weeks later. Danzo was having a bad day. It's not surprising. He hadn't had a particularly good day as Rokudaime Hokage in 5 years. Following the surprise attack on the neglected Uzumaki shrine, he summoned all those involved with that one Uzu Nin and demanded answers from them. The responses he received were mixed, with the good news being that Uzumaki Naruto was hiding out in Uzu after breaking the seals Jiraiya had placed there all those years ago. The bad news was that the loss of Sai had been a personal blow to him, as the boy had been personally trained by Danzo. Something that was once uncommon. But Sai had been his last true legacy in training Root Shinobi and was destined to be a future Anbu captain, if not the Hokage's personal bodyguard. That was now gone. "The Root Anbu you sent to Uzu should have returned by now," Homura said, as Danzo frowned slightly. "I concur. You hand-picked them for this mission, Danzo. They should be more than capable of defeating a weak and clearly ex-Jinchuriki. Even if someone from the Uzumaki clan is assisting him," Kaharu added, as Danzo's gaze narrowed at her words. "So one of two things occurred. My Root Anbu are running late in reporting their success to Konoha. Or my Root Anbu failed, and Uzumaki Naruto is now far more powerful than we thought," Danzo frowned as he concluded. "We should have sent Jiraiya and Kakashi with them," Homura said, sighing and shaking her head. "We simply cannot. That is impossible due to the bounty on their heads. Every missing nin, every rogue samurai, and every bandit is just waiting for them to leave the village," remarked Kaharu, as Danzo scowled even more. "We need to learn more about our adversary. We need to send a spy into Uzu to report on what is going on," Danzo remarked angrily before hearing a sinister laugh echo from the room's shadows. "What's the old adage, Danzo-san? When you mention the devil, he will appear," with a sinister smile on his face, the robed figure inquired. "Kabuto," Danzo said as his Root bodyguards descended on the man and bound him tightly before forcing him to his knees. Given his slithering walk before being restrained, he should have knees. "Sincerely, Danzo-sama. I could have killed you 10 minutes ago, when your bodyguards were all changing shifts." Danzo's eyes widened slightly as he heard this, remarked Kabuto. "He was only here for 10 minutes? I didn't even notice him," exclaimed Danzo, as Kabuto continued to smile. "What brings you here, Kabuto? Speak honestly, and we might let you live past today in this room," commanded Kaharu, while Kabuto smirked as if he was the one in charge. "Not a bad deal. But I believe you would let me live whether I was honest or not." Danzo narrowed his eyes at Kabuto's response. "And why would I do that to a faulty former Root operative who later became a spy for the Akatsuki and then Orochimaru?" questioned Danzo, while Kabuto's grin widened. "Because I've visited Uzu. I've seen Naruto Uzumaki. And the Uzumaki clan. Danzo's eyes widened as he responded, and his advisors did as well. Impossible. The Uzumaki clan is extinct, if not already extinct. What remains are old, frail remnants scattered throughout the elemental countries. They are no longer a part of this world, Homura said coldly, despite his dislike for the Uzumaki clan in general. However, the Uzumaki shrine being destroyed and the contents within being gone prior to that says otherwise, remarked Kabuto, his teeth clenched. What is your interest in spying on the Uzumaki clan? Danzo asked, with Kabuto simply shrugging. I suppose it's scientific curiosity. The Akatsuki actually approached me. The leader had heard an intriguing rumor that a certain Kyuubi Jinchuriki was not as dead as everyone had assumed. He asked me to conduct an investigation on his behalf. Of course, I had no intention of telling him what I knew, with Danzo frowning at his words, Kabuto replied. If that's the case, why are you bringing this information here? Iwa, why not? Or how about Kumo? What makes Konoha special? Homura questioned Kabuto because he knew he wouldn't do this unless there was a reason that benefited him. Because I know you'd be interested in this information. Konoha was so powerful before his death because of Uzumaki Naruto. He is the reason Konoha is so frail after his supposed death. If word got out that he was still alive. Kabuto replied, leaving the scenario open for the three elderly people to play out in their heads. He could rally them into a united front against us, Homura expressed concern. Under the banner of the Uzumaki clan, a war with Suna, Spring Country, several minor countries, and even the shinobi villages would crush us. Even the fire daimyo would not stand by us and would abandon the village to certain annihilation, Kaharu added as she saw the demon brat marching with his army behind him against Konoha, wiping out the village in an instant. And whatever was left of Konoha would be divided up among the various groups who were part of it, Danzo finished, knowing that whatever this allied coalition didn't get, the scattered remains of Konoha would be picked up by the likes of Kumo or Iwa. If they wanted to make an effort, they could even ask Kiri. Although I am a missing nin, I will never forget the village that raised me since I was a child. I am not a heartless person, Kabuto remarked, his head slightly lowered so that no one could see past the darkness of his hooded face. And what do you know about him? What is the Uzumaki clan? How are they doing now? Is it due to the Edo Tensei? Danzo demanded, while Kabuto just laughed. I can tell you that Naruto is gradually regaining his former strength. Not easy given his lack of a physical body or the Kyuubi to lend him the chakra he requires. But don't let that fool you. While he may not have a physical form, his spirit hasn't lost any of its power when it comes to being tested. Uzumaki Naruto sees everything from the top of the Uzu Tower, deep within the village of Uzu. His gaze has the ability to pierce the clouds, mountains, water, fire, shadows, and even flesh. Kabuto said this while his body spasmed and his root guards clutched him tightly. What do you mean? Danzo asked, as Kabuto's breathing became a little ragged. I'm referring to an eye. A single eye perched atop Uzu Tower, wrapped in flames. While Danzo and the other two looked at each other, Kabuto responded. Jiraiya's foreboding prophecy. The one the Toad Elder predicted. Homura exclaimed, as the trio returned their gaze to Kabuto. He is bringing everything related to the Uzumaki clan to him on Uzu. Even the ancient world's dark spirits prostrate themselves at his feet. He is absorbing all things powerful into his being. For those who oppose him, he intends to build an army large enough to launch a full-fledged assault on Konoha, the Akatsuki, and eventually the elemental countries as a whole, Kabuto remarked as he twitched once more. They would have gone on if it hadn't been for Tsunade, Jiraiya, Hiashi, and the other Konoha nin who witnessed the aftermath of the Uzumaki Shrine's destruction. I could feel something foul in the air. You asshole, where is he? Where is the Gaki? I need to find him and crush his skull. Tsunade said this before grabbing Kabuto and violently shaking him. Tsunade's life had been a living hell for the past 5 years. She was thought to have had the second shortest reign as Hokage, after the Yondaime Hokage. Then she started having dreams about her own family rejecting her, calling her a traitor to her Senju and Uzumaki ancestors. How a time would come when she would face the wrath of the one she had failed, and that person would not be alone in inflicting pain. She needed to put an end to these terrifying dreams, and the only way to do so was to crush Naruto before it was too late. Tsunade, relax. Your interruption in this matter is unnecessary. Kabuto was willingly giving us the information. Kaharu exclaimed as Tsunade looked at her. Stop talking, you old hag. Even if Kami himself came down from the heavens and declared it all true, I wouldn't believe a word he said. Now, Kabuto, answer my question and tell me where I can find that blonde idiot. Tsunade demanded before shaking his head, causing the man's hood to fall back, revealing his face. Oh Kami! Exclaimed Ino, as everyone backed away from Kabuto in disbelief at the sight of his face. His face was badly burned, scarred, and disfigured, with only the man's mouth intact. Looks like the snake is out of the box, Kabuto remarked, laughing. Didn't Naruto catch you spying and do this to you? Iruka inquired as she observed the carving of what appeared to be an eye of some sort into the middle of the man's forehead before it was cauterized, violently, by the looks of it, shortly after cutting. Yes. He did. I noticed him. I confronted him. I lost, Kabuto replied, his face twisting from an insane smile to one filled with sorrow and pain that could not be forgotten. How did you get away from him? Shikamaru asked, with Kabuto smirking and chuckling again. Escaped? Who said I got away? Kabuto inquired, giving Danzo a knowing look. You are now his servant. His emissary. Danzo remarked coldly, while Kabuto nodded again, his happy yet sad smile on his face. You didn't think I'd be able to compete with Naruto's own Will of Fire, did you? While flattering, I must admit that no one can. There can be no victory against Uzu's overall power. This is not for you. No way, Akatsuki. No way, no how. All who oppose, challenge, or wrong him will face his wrath like no other person has ever faced. Some of you should consider joining him, if only to increase your chances of being granted mercy. It would be best to be by his side when the war begins. Then to be in his path, Kabuto responded with a defeated tone in his voice. Never. I'd rather fight for Konoha than prostrate before him. When I'm done with that brat, he'll be wishing for his death all over again. Tsunade exclaimed angrily, while Kabuto just shook his head before dipping his head for a second. Granny, you're so naive. I thought I wished for death and would die at your hands. The next thing you'll say to me is that Jiraiya has stopped being a super pervert, Soren's voice replied through Kabuto, who looked up, his eyes glazed over, and the eye on his forehead was actually on fire. What the hell is this? Exclaimed Jiraiya, thinking along the lines of seeing what everyone else was seeing in the form of body possession, similar to the Yamanaka mind techniques when they enter someone. Hello there, Ero Sennin. I see how the world has treated you, despite the numerous times you have undoubtedly peered at women and been caught, Sauron remarked through Kabuto's mouth. So you'd stoop to the level of possessing another man to speak with us? What's the problem? You're too scared to face us? It must be difficult not to have a body to call your own. Tsunade laughed as Sauron did. Tsunade, you have no reason to talk to me about stooping so low. After all, you were the one who betrayed your grandmother by abandoning me. Wasn't it you who betrayed the Uzumaki clan after learning of my death by siding with Konoha? Or did you forget you had our clan's blood coursing through your veins? Tsunade scowled in response to Sauron. I'm about to have your servant's blood all over my hands if you don't start talking right now. Tsunade demanded as Sauron laughed cruelly. Still using all of your body's muscles except the one that matters the most here. Shame on you. It's not like it matters. You are already aware. Kabuto informed you. According to my instructions, while the others looked perplexed, Sauron responded. He told the truth to us? And you let him do it? Why? Kurenai inquired, his face twisted almost violently to face the woman. Because my friends and senseis figured it out. It is no longer necessary to conceal it. Danzo has already dispatched a team of his root Anbu to my location in Uzu. They died in a ferocious manner. Even more so when they all refused to speak. At first, Sauron replied with a knowing grin on Kabuto's face. Impossible. Their tongues are sealed, preventing them from speaking, remarked Kaharu, as Sauron laughed cruelly once more. You seem to have forgotten that the Uzumaki clan are seal masters of the highest level. Once we found the seal, removing them was a piece of cake. They then told us everything. Without that seal, all of your suppressed emotions resurfaced. It was quite amusing to see such mindless drones you command cry out suddenly, screaming out as their minds broke down, their bodily waste pouring out of them like a waterfall, and the never-ending flood of tears they shed from their eyes over the horrors they had committed in your name, Sauron replied, his grin on Kabuto's face never leaving. What my root had always done had always been for the benefit of Konoha, Danzo countered with a frown, as Sauron laughed louder through Kabuto. Who are you attempting to persuade, Danzo? Me? Yourself? What about the people around you? I know all of your dark secrets. I am aware of all your transgressions. And I have no qualms about sharing them with the rest of the world. Every country, every noble, every daimyo, and every shinobi village can be turned against Konoha. I can sign a death warrant without even moving my finger. While many in the room tensed, Sauron spoke. You're playing a game. If you had all that information, you would have shared it with everyone by now, Tsunade countered with Soren's grin that never left Kabuto's mouth. Tsunade, come on. For once, use your brain instead of drinking your next cup of sake. You expect me to let the other villages and countries that Konoha has wronged crush you first? That right is mine and mine alone, Sauron replied, slightly tilting Kabuto's head. You'll fail. You're not strong enough to take on Konoha. Even if you had a slew of Uzumaki clan members at your disposal, each with the strength and power of a cage. Tsunade added, as Kabuto's grin widened. I know. That is why I have command of the entire Uzumaki clan. I raised them all from the dead, Sauron responded, leaving Danzo and the adults who were aware of the clan's power pale with fear. Have you used the Edo Tensei? You showed disrespect to the dead. And not just on your clan. Do you have no shame? Jiraiya demanded, as Kabuto's head turned eerily at him with a semi-cold look. You have no right to pass judgment on me, Ero Sennin. Who was it who conspired with many of the adults in this room, as well as the Sandaime Hokage, to keep the Uzumaki clan from coming to their aid during the Second Shinobi War? Who knew about my parents and kept things from me the entire time? Who decided I should learn pointless basics in chakra control that an Uzumaki clan member couldn't learn due to the vast well of chakra in their system so you could spy on women? Who had disobeyed my father's dying wish? Who was to blame for giving Danzo a reason to have me executed? Jiraiya scowled and gritted his teeth in rage as he questioned Sauron. You ungrateful brat, it was for your own good. You should have taken your lumps and moved on. Jiraiya was enraged. Says the person who wasn't on the receiving end of things like I was when I was younger. It doesn't matter. You'll soon discover what it's like to be in genuine pain. My mother will take care of it. My father will, too. While the room fell silent, Sauron replied. What about your father? But he's no longer alive. Even Edo Tensei cannot bring him back. During the Chunin exam's invasion, Orochimaru already tried. Jiraiya exclaimed, while Kabuto's evil smile, a reflection of Soren's, only grew. The Uzumaki shrine housed numerous treasures. You should have looked after it better, Sauron replied, while Danzo's eyes widened in recognition. In the temple, there are masks. They have some sort of relationship with the Shinigami. Sauron let out a cold laugh as Danzo stated. Yes. We used such strength to free my father's soul from the Shinigami's stomach, and when we mixed in the Edo Tensei. Well, let's just say my father will not be a Konoha hero this time, Sauron replied before laughing even harder. Monster. You're going to use that on your own father? And what about your mother? Tsunade, enraged, exclaimed. Without a doubt. So why not? I've always wanted to meet my biological parents. Not some piece of their souls they left as a deterrent to the Kyuubi. Now I have the opportunity. After all, weren't you tempted when Orochimaru offered you the chance to reclaim your brother Nawaki and lover Dan in exchange for restoring his arms? Tsunade gritted her teeth as Sauron countered. I declined the offer, Tsunade replied. No. However, you were tempted. In fact, I believe you would have taken it if Jiraiya and I hadn't intervened when we did. Don't even try to deny it. I can see your expression clearly enough to know I'm correct, Sauron laughed as he noticed Tsunade's angry, somewhat guilty expression. I'm going to have a good time crushing your servant. And once I've finished destroying him, I'll send you what's left of his body. Tsunade yelled angrily. I'm sure you would. I'm sure you'd love to take my servant here and rip him open for anything he knows that I didn't have him tell you. Actually, I'm tempted to let you torture him. Keep an eye on how you destroy him in every way. Only to receive nothing in return for your efforts. Then watch as your lack of success corrupts your heart and drives you insane. But I doubt it. I believe my little game with you has come to an end. So tell me, traitors to the true will of fire of the Shodem Hokage and the Uzumaki clan. How do you all choose to die? Sauron exclaimed as Kabuto's body began to spasm violently in front of them, and seals appeared all over him, glowing red. Run. He made Kabuto a living bomb. Jiraiya yelled, grabbing Tsunade and diving behind a nearby couch. At this point, everyone seemed to be moving in slow motion, trying to get away from the impending explosion and avoid as much bodily harm as possible. Kaboom! The entire floor of that level of the Hokage Tower was destroyed at that moment. Uzu at the time. If Sauron had a real body and a real face, he'd be smiling right now. A piece of Uzumaki Naruto's mind that came up with pranks had been used for this exact maneuver against Konoha. Sure, it revealed to them that he was alive, growing stronger, and now had the support of the entire Uzumaki clan as well as his parents. But he didn't tell them everything that had happened since his return. He didn't tell them about Uzumaki Mito's reappearance. something they obviously overlooked during the conversation while his mind was occupying Kabuto's body. He also assumed they were unaware of the true significance of him removing the Shinigami masks from the Uzumaki shrine, which they had foolishly neglected over the years. Sure, Sauron got his parents back, which he had long desired, but that was only a fraction of what had been accomplished since using the true mask's power and freeing several Shinigami-bound souls. "You're asking a lot of me when it comes to fighting Konoha, my lord," a figure with a soft voice near the formless shadowed mass of Sauron replied. "You know what Konoha has become since our deaths, Hashirama. They deserted your wife's family. Our own students betrayed the lessons we taught them," another figure spoke in a colder, more serious tone. "Tobirama is familiar to me, but it is difficult to destroy what one has created. All that time, effort, and energy put into making the dream a reality. Konoha is my child in some ways. Our clan's offspring. We helped build it, fund it, and give it life so that it could become one of the 5 major shinobi villages of its time," Tobirama sighed as Hashirama countered. "And what has our clan's child become? Sickly. Corrupt. The will of fire that we put into it has been extinguished. By your own admission, brother, the village is no longer in its infancy. It's a fully mature adult. A fully grown adult who has committed heinous crimes and must be stopped." "In some way or another," Tobirama replied, with Hashirama sighing. "I'm familiar with my brother. I know. Just thinking about destroying rather than creating makes me feel like Madara when he went insane." Tobirama flinched as Hashirama revealed Madara overheard their heated argument about the Uchiha clan and went rogue as a result. "Madara is not you. And if anyone is truly to blame for the mess Konoha has created right now, he stands not far from us," Tobirama remarked, slightly glaring at the man wearing Sarutobi clan combat armor and helmet. "What I did was for the good of Konoha," the figure said before collapsing to the ground as painful spasms rocked his body. "Do not speak unless you are speaking to Hiruzen. I returned your life to you. You've regained your youth. It's all for one reason. Konoha must be destroyed and burned to the ground," Sauron declared as Hiruzen glared at him. "Naruto, Konoha is your home, just as it is mine. You are no better than Orochimaru or Madara if you destroy it. Is that what you're looking for? To be pitted against those two? Being like those two?" Hiruzen exclaimed before being slammed into a nearby wall by an invisible force. "You have no right to address me by my given name when I was alive in this realm. You will only call me Sauron and nothing else. Konoha is not where I live. A house is a place where you feel safe. A home is where you are loved by those who live there. A home is a place where the people around you are friendly and trustworthy. Where was all of that when I was a child? Where was this love when I was a childhood Hiruzen in Konoha?" Sauron exclaimed, his rage pulsing around him and felt by the others throughout Uzu. Many people were upset when the Sandaime Hokage was resurrected. Even less when he regained his youth. When the man regained consciousness, the first thing he tried to do was flee to Konoha. To forewarn them. To assist his family in preparing for Uzu in the former Kyuubi Jinchuriki. Only to be stopped by a number of sources. One of them was Sauron himself, who had used his power to bind the man to his being, much like the Ringwraiths of Middle-earth. Unlike the Ringwraiths, Sauron could use his power to inflict pain on the man, and he could make it hurt. A lot. It made no difference how far he ran, how quickly he moved, or how strong the Sandaime was in his prime. The link to Sauron was unmistakable, and the former Sandaime Hokage was quickly brought to his knees. The Yondaime Hokage was the second source. With his soul free of the Shinigami, It was only a matter of time before he used the Edo Tensei mixed with sorcery, as he had done previously with the Uzumaki clan, to make the man walk among the living. The same thing had happened to his mother, and the two had been moved to tears when they learned what had happened to their son. They still refused to call him Sauron. They dubbed him Naruto and would only address him as such. Minato even assisted with the Ring of Power, which required a significant boost after it was completed, and offered up the other half of the Kyuubi sealed inside his body. The other half of Naruto's body that existed prior to his death was lost forever unless they could obtain enough genetic material to cause a return to the body with the other half waiting for him. In fact, Minato wanted to check with the hospital to see if any such genetic material was still in Konoha. Naruto had given him permission to do so in a few days with Kushina to see if they could give him his old body before altering it to be a proper age. When reuniting with his wife, the last thing Naruto wanted to do was appear in his 16-year-old body while she was a healthy and stunning 21-year-old. If there was such genetic material in the village, such as blood, it was most likely kept cold and under strict security, requiring someone like Kushina to break it down. With his bad temper and all. Speaking of Kushina and her bad temper, she was furious at Minato at first, yelling at him for doing what he did and even punching him in the face before she apologized to her husband. Minato, on the other hand, shrugged it off, saying he deserved at least one punch to the face, and the two, along with their son, moved on to Hiruzen. Following the escape attempt, Sauron forced the man to his knees with his growing power, and he was dragged before Minato and Kushina, who demanded an explanation. Hiruzen, for one, refused to give at least a first. One of the primary reasons Hiruzen was brought back to his prime bodily state was so that the former Sandaime Hokage could experience all of the pain Sauron desired. Doing such a painful and horrible thing to an elderly man would have taken the man's life far too soon. And bringing the Sarutobi back again and again would have been taxing on the shadowy mass. Even with his new Ring of Power at the top of Uzu Tower providing him with a much-needed boost. Of course, if he got his old body back, he'd improve it and make the fox whole again, all while merging the two within the Ring of Power itself. If everything went as planned, the Akatsuki would have no idea what hit them, and their plan for the Biju would fail. Hiruzen eventually agreed to speak in the manner that Minato and Kushina desired after much time and effort on their part. Hiruzen finally admitted that the Uzumaki clan posed a threat to Konoha. Not at the time, but perhaps in the future when the lands are at peace. How they would have preferred Kushina to be returned to Uzu after the war, strengthening the clan's position and leaving Konoha vulnerable to other villages with their own Jinchuriki. With Jiraiya becoming a seal master and Kushina in Konoha, he felt it was better to avoid any future losses by simply allowing the Uzumaki clan to die out. At best, they could easily pick up a few clan members and bring them to Konoha to rebuild the clan in the manner desired by the village. To be closely watched and monitored under his supervision, while secretly stealing all of the clan's knowledge of Fuinjutsu for Konoha to use in the future. Hiruzen even admitted to having a secret order in place to liquidate the Uzumaki clan if more than just Kushina lived in Konoha and became a liability to the village. It got worse for Hiruzen when he sensed killer intent behind him and saw his two senseis, as well as Mito, staring at him. They had also heard his confession and were dissatisfied with his actions regarding the Uzumaki clan when he became Hokage during the Second Shinobi War. Ironically, it was Hiruzen's words that had persuaded both Senju brothers to join Sauron in going to war against Konoha. They were initially opposed because they loved Konoha and what it once stood for when the village was founded. However, after hearing how Hiruzen betrayed them and allowed the betrayal to spread unopposed, if not encouraged it, Hashirama and Tobirama decided it was time to cut down the dying tree. Jinchuriki are deadly weapons. War and conflict deterrence the sword's pointy tip and the kunai. How I shaped you was entirely up to me and the Hokage, who would one day succeed me. Hiruzen gritted his teeth before being slammed hard into the floor. I never considered Mito to be a weapon of war. According to my understanding, Minato did not do the same with Kushina when she became the next vessel, while Hiruzen looked up at his former sensei, countered Hashirama. Because you were too attached to Mito. Minato loved Kushina too much, despite Mai and Jiraiya's best efforts to keep him from becoming too attached to her. Love has no place in the life of a Jinchuriki. It's a life filled with pain, loneliness, isolation, and suffering. It's been that way since you divided the Biju between the major shinobi villages and the minor ones after Taki's failed assassination attempt. When you do that to promote peace, you set things in motion, Hashirama. Don't think your actions in all of this are innocent. While Hashirama looked sad, Hiruzen challenged him. Hiruzen is someone I know. I am fully aware of the consequences of my actions. I have a lot of regrets. But one regret I have is greater than the sum of them all, said Hashirama, still looking up at Hiruzen. And what regret is that? Hiruzen inquired. Kaharu and Homura, I'm training you. Without a doubt, your brother feels the same way I do about choosing between you and Danzo for the position of Hokage. If either of us could go back in time, I would have killed the three of you when you were genin. Tobirama would have most likely killed you both during the Second Shinobi War rather than deciding which of you would be his successor after his death. As far as we are concerned, neither of you was ever deserving of the position, and your actions since then have only served to prove it, Hashirama replied before walking away from his former student, his brother and wife close by. This isn't the end of Hashirama. Tobirama. I'll break free, and when I do, you'll be in my clutches. Hiruzen exclaimed before crying out in agony as his master fried him from the inside out. You can't get away from me, Sarutobi Hiruzen. You are now mine. And when the time comes to invade Konoha, I have special orders for you, Sauron replied before letting out a cruel chuckle at the sight of the man in agony in front of him. I will not comply with your request. You can't force me. Hiruzen protested before feeling his body go against him and pulling a kunai from his holster before stabbing himself in the leg. But Hiruzen, I can do that. My will says yes, but you say no. Countered Sauron while twisting Hiruzen's kunai in the leg to reinforce that statement. Damn you brat! Exclaimed Hiruzen, still in pain from his injury. Sauron simply laughed at him as he moved to another part of Uzu to assess the growing army he was assembling for the impending war. His family and army would soon march on the world, and he would be ready. He intended to rally all shinobi villages and countries under his banner. He would direct their rage, hatred, fury, and all of the pain they had endured at the perpetrators. When he, Hinata, and his wife were all together, they would rule over a world that was scattered, broken, and divided in every way imaginable in terms of true leadership. Everyone would submit to them. Everyone would kneel. They would rule the world and make it a better place. They would establish a dynasty that would last until the end of time. He only needed to get rid of those who would oppose him. Specifically, the Akatsuki and Konoha. Those two would be the most dangerous. All of the major shinobi villages had lost their Biju, if not their Jinchuriki, to the Akatsuki at some point. Suna was the only one who survived thanks to Konoha and Naruto, with the biggest thanks going to Naruto, who should have gotten more credit because he was the one pushing to get to Wind Country to save his friend. In terms of Konoha, Naruto, or Sauron if you will, when dealing with things like war, had planned for several people to deal with the village in their own way. It was his intention to bring back the Uzumaki clan, the Senju brothers, his own parents, and even Sarutobi Hiruzen to ensure that they all did one thing for him when the time came. To annihilate everything Konoha had become. To crush the people who are inside. To suffocate Konoha civilians and shinobi alike with their sandals. To look down at them while they pleaded for mercy. allowing them to live while no doubt promising to be good people again and apologizing for betraying the will of fire. Only for Sauron's people to press down hard and hear all those throats go, crunch, while watching the life in his enemy's eyes die out. It would be magnificent.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.